October 3rd, 2015. TRID becomes mandatory and changes the real estate closing process as we know it. So what should buyers, also known as borrowers, that fall within TRID expect when buying a home? All borrowers that fall within TRID guidelines will receive the LE, the loan estimate. This form outlines the estimation of fees for closing. Lenders are required to give accurate fees, and this form must be provided to borrowers within 3 days of applying for a loan. For closing, borrowers receive the CD, the closing disclosure. The closing disclosure must be provided to borrowers at least 3 business days before closing. And yes, Saturdays are considered business days. Failure to deliver the CD at least 3 business days before closing will result in a delay of closing. So why the new forms? Pre-TRID, buyers would meet with a lender to apply for a loan. The lender would ask, "So if you had your dream job, how much would you make?" Or, "Mr. and Mrs. Borrower, just breathe into this mirror for me. Have you seen the movie The Big Short?" Now, to be fair, not all lenders were doing shady deals. There were and still are plenty of great mortgage providers to work with, but that is a conversation for another day. Out of the 2008 mortgage crisis, the President signed the Dodd-Frank Act into federal law on July 21, 2010. And on July 21, 2011, the CFPB was formed, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The CFPB is an independent agency of the United States government responsible for consumer protection in the financial sector. The Bureau is charged with enforcing the laws within the mortgage industry. Consumers who feel they have been mistreated can voice their complaints directly to the CFPB. The CFPB can fine violators up to $1 million per day per violation. So we have talked about the forms and the how and why the CFPB was created. But what does the closing process look like for borrowers that fall under TRID? Most of the changes have to do with mortgage lenders. When borrowers work with lenders, there are a lot of forms to sign. No, more forms than that. Getting close? There we go. How about with attorneys at closing? You see, previously the buyers and the sellers would meet at the attorney's office at the same time to sign documents. Now, while the sellers sign documents, the buyers can still be in the room, but when the borrowers sign, the sellers can't be in the room. The reason is because the seller cannot see the private loan information on the buyer's closing disclosure. Remember, the CFPB is called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The buyer is the consumer, so most of the rules are aimed at protecting the buyer. You might be thinking, well, are all buyers subject to TRID? Great question. The answer is no. Here are the types of borrowers that are not subject to TRID. Borrowers seeking a home equity line of credit, also known as HELOCs, those looking to obtain a reverse mortgage, those obtaining a mortgage secured by a mobile home or dwelling not attached to land, borrowers who are seeking a no-interest second mortgage made for down payment assistance, energy efficiency, or foreclosure avoidance, and the last but certainly not the least, those getting a loan from a creditor who makes 5 or fewer mortgages in a single year. All of these types of borrowers, as well as cash buyers, will receive the HUD-1 settlement statement at closing rather than the closing disclosure. So what kind of buyers does TRID apply to? All closed-end consumer mortgage loans secured by real property purchased primarily for personal, family, or household purposes, including construction loans, vacant land loans, 25 acres or more loans, or single-family residence loans. There you have it, TRID, the Truth in Lending Act, Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act, Integrated Disclosure Rule.